All right. So talking about those rankings then from Corey Pronman, on the latest, or not latest, but recently they did all last week, those delayed prospect rankings. Like I mentioned to you before, Holloway was a key prospect for Edmonton. And this is like 2 or 3 weeks after the initial offer sheet. But the Wild fell in the group of 9 to 16. Out of this group, and I won't have all 8 off the top of my head, but I'm going to list off a bunch of the teams, and you tell me where you think the Wild roughly stacks up. And this is guys, I think the cutoff is like 23 for Pronman. It's like Matt Boldy just graduated, quote unquote. Is it 22? 22. Okay. So it was the St. Louis Blues, Seattle Kraken, Detroit Red Wings, Buffalo Sabres, Minnesota Wild. Who else was in this mix? I said Buffalo Sabres. That's as many as I can remember right now, so I'm missing a couple. Where do you put the Minnesota Wild among that group?
Probably towards the tail end. I see people going back and forth a lot with like the Blues, and I think the Blues have made a couple. Like, I mean, the fact that 3 first-rounders last year.
Mm-hmm. Blues were at the very end of Pronman's list, 9 to 16.
Right. I gotta find I had the list up for a second ago. Oh, here it is. Yeah, Blues, Rangers, Wings, Flyers, Canes, Sabres, Wild, Kraken. That was the 9 to 16. And then looking at that again, because he has them 10th. So he's right. Yep. They're right behind Seattle in that. And now that I actually like look at it, they're probably, because I mean the Flyers were pretty bare for a while, and then obviously last couple of drafts, people can say what they want about this past draft, but I mean the fact you have Michkov sit there, that's a real nice piece of business. That automatically shoots you up a few spots. Carolina, like I feel like it's all about the value with them. They may not be like picking super early, but like that's what gives that prospect pool a big plus. The Red Wings, they've had a couple guys recently just like graduate into NHL roles, or I guess for Pronman, I guess be older than 22. So, because that was the interesting thing about this list, because it just is age. Like, I mean, we're still considering like we're saying
Faber and Rossi.
Right. We're still in this list, so that kind of like made it. Obviously, that changed it a little bit here. And then the Rangers have a couple guys that they picked up late the last few years, like in the first or second round, that like have really kind of popped off and look like pretty solid prospects. And again, like the Blues, like they have the jump. You like the fact you picked 3 times in the first round last year. Pick up a kid like Jiricek this year, plus a couple other nice pickups. I think like that order doesn't like shock me. So like again, like you said too, like a guy like Boldy graduates out of like this list. But the Wild have also had a couple guys that were drafted super early, like they kind of age out, or they're still like figuring out pro hockey, which like it's interesting how that always changes things too, where it's like you have all the stock in the world when you first get drafted or before you get drafted, and then like if one year you don't like pop off playing in the AHL or whatever, or like in Lambos' case, you can say what you want about his last WHL season. It's hard to like put any confidence in any take if you haven't watched that team like game in, game out. But like I guess people would have said that maybe they would have expected more or whatever. It's always interesting how that completely changes. Like 1 year can really like change your like how people look at your stock or whatever. So I don't I think around 10, that's fine. Like I don't think it's crazy.
Yeah.
And like I would say and this is where we'll actually get into the list here that he put up. That this is where it gets like, I did not think that's where this is going.
There's 2 of them that I'm gonna
point
right at. But I gotta pump your tires first, though, Z. Who are the two players that you think Corey Pronman said, like, above and beyond, were the best two players at the World Junior Summer Showcase? And hint, you were very, very high on both of these players. And this is, sorry, across that entire, like, group that we talked about.
Did he say
not just Wild.
Soini? I don't know.
It could have been Hlinka too. Maybe it's just like who showed up this summer in general. But
did he say something about Soini?
No. One Wild player and one non-Wild player.
Oh, fuck. I have no idea.
Zeev Buium and number one. You didn't label him as a draft son, I don't believe necessarily, but like maybe you did. But like literally, you were higher on this guy than everyone in the world this year. No one put him as high as you did that I saw. Like, this shouldn't be hard. Who did you put extremely high on your draft board this year? I'll give you a hint. It wasn't one or two.
Caedan?
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
He said, like, Caedan's performance this summer is the reason that he put Seattle above Minnesota. Like, he thinks that having Caedan and Shane Wright and of course Mr. Beniers, who just got his big deal, like having those three he loves. I gotta ask you though, when you look at their deficiency as well as Minnesota's, obviously you're not going to go back and redo it, but like it feels like it makes all the sense in the world for Buium and Caedan to just like flip places.
Yeah.
No?
I think so. Yeah. Oh yeah, I just pulled up his list for Seattle. Yeah, he put Caedan at 2. Yeah, I mean that feels about right. I mean, it's so weird to me that the Caedan thing to me was crazy because like coming into like for the last 3 years, Berkeley Caedan's always been everyone had him very, very high, probably anywhere from like 3 to 6. And then like out of nowhere, I don't know if people were like, oh, I forgot that he's not 6'5". Because every time I would see someone say something about like why they had him at like 12 or 15 or whatever. It was like the size would be like he's been hold on a second. Nothing has changed. He's only gotten better every year. But like he didn't shrink. Like,
well, but
that's not been a problem.
He didn't grow though. He didn't grow like Demidov did.
Which I mean, God, whatever. It's just weird. I can't handle the size. It's just so weird. Feel like, well, that would be harder for him to be a setter. I'm like, well, guess what? He can do the same shit he's doing now. Like, he's great. Like, he's gonna be a phenomenal fucking NHL player. Yeah. Like, he's been playing in the WHL against guys who are older than him for like 3 years and putting up 100 fucking points. It's crazy. But you know what? Whatever. That's fine.
All right, we're gonna get into the list that Pronman has for the Wild, his rankings. But before we get to them, I just have to ask you. I'll just say numbers. Is 6 over 7 your biggest issue?
Yeah.
I figured.
Life. Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, there's a couple others. So the placements, I'm like, where are we? What are we doing here? But we should, yeah. We should just list off because he did.
There's one that's going to have fans in an absolute uproar.
He did a list of 13 and then listed a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Basically, I mean, we can basically call them audible mentions, but
9 being over 11 will have people shitting themselves.
Okay, we can't just say. You can't just say the numbers over and over. People are going to be losing their fucking minds.
No, they will lose their minds over that one. I'm scared.
Yeah. So I'm just going to rattle off the list, and then we'll go back just so we can do this.
Everyone, just remember 6, 7, 9, 11.
Yeah, just remember that. And again, so criteria here is, all right, skaters 22 years old or younger as of September 15th, 2024. September 15th is the cutoff year or the cutoff date for like each draft, regardless of NHL games, yada. Player heights and weights taken from the NHL. Of course, that's the first fucking thing he mentions after the age. And then he basically just grades on 4 different kind of tools, and then he has different tiers. So we'll list that.
Not
all right,
skaters.
the list 1 through. Okay, I know. I just read it.
I know.
Read what he wrote. Number 1, Zeev Buium. Number 2, Brock Faber. Which again, the second I saw that, I was like, okay, this list is going to be interesting. Obviously, I wouldn't consider him a prospect anymore, but we're just going up by age here. Number 3, Marco Rossi. Number 4, Jesper Wallstedt. Number 5, Danila Yurov. And here's where it gets crazy. Number 6, Caedan Bankier. Number 7, Liam Öhgren. Number 8, Carson Lambos. Number 9, Charlie Stramel. Number 10, Ryder Ritchie. Number 11, Marat Khusnutdinov. Number 12, Rasmus Kumpulainen, and number 13, Aron Kiviharju. And then, I mean, the version of like honorable mention on this list, we've got Hunter Height, Riley Height, Daemon Hunt, Rieger Lorenz, Jack Peart, and David Spacek.
I'm shocked being
we can kind of go guy by guy here.
Yes, but can I just commend Pronman, given who Pronman is and how he evaluates these players, first and foremost off height? Kiviharju being on the list and not an honorable mention is a big step for him.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
I'm proud of him.
So we can go player by player here. Some will spend more time on than others because, I mean, it's at least worth doing, like mentioning the tier that Pronman lists them in, and then the 4 different tools that he grades here. But as like overall, obviously, again, the order of this list is, I would say, the same as about 2% of like Wild fans. But I think the key thing to remember isn't that he's ranking based, or it's that he is not ranking based on like upside and ceiling. It is essentially likelihood that this becomes an NHL player, and then that's where the ceiling part comes in. But a big piece of this, I just knowing how Pronman evaluates prospects in general, and then how he does these rankings, a big component is just like the path to get to playing NHL games. So like his honorable mention that we're calling an honorable mention, that is actually like the way he labels it is has a chance to play NHL games. That's not honorable. Like, so that's kind of where this list will different. Like we did the thing with Sound the Foghorn guys, where I think a good amount of our rankings were based on like ceiling. Gotcha. So that'll be coming out. But yeah, I figured it was at least worth mentioning that, just because I feel like reading off that list 1 through 13, like, what the fuck? And specifically on, and again, we'll get there, but the Riley Height one, it's worth at least going through like the context, because he does provide a couple sentences worth context. Let's pick
the ones that matter. Like, we don't need to tell people about Faber and Buium, right? Like,
well, again, so he has Buium ranked first. I think that's people have Buium 1, 2, or 3. The tier that he puts him in is NHL All-Star, skating above average, puck skills above average, NHL average, hockey sense high end, compete NHL average. Again, I don't think we need to spend a whole lot of time on why Buium would have been put first on this list. He's got tremendous upside. Specifically, Pronman, who I don't think said this coming into the draft, mentioned that he looks like a guy that absolutely has first pair NHL All-Star potential, first power play unit. And again, the thing that he mentions with the defense is like he is more than capable of defending. Is it like Norris level defending? No, but doesn't matter. But again, so like I said, we don't have to spend a whole lot of time on that one because that's not crazy. Number 2, Brock Faber. Tier, top of the lineup player, skating above NHL average, puck skills, NHL average, hockey sense above NHL average, compete high end. We don't need to spend a ton of time on Faber. Again, I like not in my prospect pool, I guess, because he's absolutely very much so an NHL player. But the thing that Pronman mentions too is the fact that like we didn't really see this coming. The fact that he showed that he could actually be a pretty solid power play quarterback. Again, all things going well for Minnesota, this is probably your second power play unit guy, not your first. But again, he put up half a point per game this year. That's crazy. No one really, I don't think anyone would have been predicting that necessarily beforehand. But I would say
said on the podcast that like 30 is what you should expect from Faber, like being a ceiling.
Being Wheeler?
No, Pronman.
Yeah. Sorry.
On their podcast. Sorry, not with us.
Right. Yeah, actually, that's what I was about to mention next because he says that in this article too. So that's perfect. 3, Marco Rossi. We don't need to say much more. The one thing I wanted to mention about Marco Rossi, though. Tier, bubble top and middle of the lineup player, skating NHL average, puck skills above NHL average, hockey sense high end, compete above NHL average. I think that checks out, honestly. The one thing about Rossi is like, this is where it gets so fascinating trying to figure out what the lineup looks like on day one. The one thing that you can count on young guys performing better year after year here, like Rossi putting up 21 goals last year. If he improves, that's going to be big, obviously, for Minnesota, and makes him more of a candidate to be in like that top 6 in the center. That's one thing I was thinking about earlier today. I was like, we keep shitting on the fact that they didn't go out and get like a top of the lineup, like center or whatever. If he can take another step offensively, that's going to be huge. But again, just mention that quickly. We don't need to spend a ton of time on this. Number 4, Jesper Wallstedt. The tier is bubble top and middle of the lineup player. It's funny, like he's like, what am I going to fucking do for like the tools? Just put skating, NHL average, hockey sets above NHL average. That's fine. I mean, no qualms on that one. We'll see what they do with Jesper Wallstedt. Drive me up a fucking wall. Danila Yurov at 5. Tier, bubble top and middle of the lineup player, skating, NHL average, puck skills above NHL average, hockey sense, NHL average, compete, NHL average, shot above NHL average. No real qualms with that one either. Again, finally was allowed to play hockey last year. The KHL was one of their best players. They won the Gagarin Cup, whatever it's fucking called. And he was a big piece of that. Love that he showed that he was able to play center potentially even in the NHL. So hopefully he plays more center this year once he gets healthy, which should be the next week or two as the KHL season starts tomorrow, Tuesday. And now we can we're at the part of the list now where things are going to get crazy. Number 6, Caedan Bankier. The tier is middle of the lineup. So like, and again, the reason I wanted to mention the tools thing or the grading tools or whatever is this becomes very relevant later on. So again, number 6, Caedan Bankier, tier, middle of the lineup player. These are the tools. Skating, NHL average, puck skills, NHL average, hockey sense, NHL average, compete, NHL average, shot above NHL average. I just talked for a long time. What was your reaction to seeing this one at 6? The group chat was fun.
I love it. I love that he's like that high on this guy because he's one that we've talked about for a while, especially seeing what he did jumping in on that World Junior team. Like he's a guy that we kind of wonder, can he really make that next jump? A little surprised that like the one thing that was above average for him was his shot. Like among all of these things. And that's not saying that he's got a bad shot, but it's just like, this is a guy that I almost would have thought like hockey sense and compete would be pretty high on his list. And the fact that his shot is pretty much in line with Liam Öhgren, as we're going to get into, that's more what shocked me.
Yeah. So, and this is where it becomes very relevant, where you mentioned the fact that a lot of this is based on just like likelihood to become a full-time NHL player. And then from there, it's like the likelihood that they'll fill that role that they're projected to. And again, so Pronman mentions that he projects like a middle 6'4" with a legit chance to be a 3C. And I think that's fair. Like you said, was surprised the one above NHL average grade was the shot part.
Mm-hmm.
I think he did show last year, as soon as he stepped in the AHL, he started scoring goals. And we've definitely seen him take a major step just in his shot in general, but like goal scoring ability, the fact that he can score in a variety of ways is not kind of like a one trick pony or whatever. Yeah. The last 3 or 4 years is relevant. This is just where it comes down to like so this isn't about ceiling then, because I think there's a couple of guys, but like when you look at what a lot of NHL teams, and the way we described Bankier before is like kind of like a jack of all trades, incredibly reliable player, low maintenance. That's going to be like every coach would love to have a Caedan Bankier on their team. And again, his development the last 3 years has been phenomenal. Just seeing the steps that he's taken. And we mentioned that when he went to the World Juniors, playing on a fourth line, getting limited minutes, legitimately made an impact and forced his way onto the ice. Like, so I think the fact that he can play a variety of roles, and you can pretty much throw him on the ice in any situation, really. And he has that ability that he's shown the last couple of years where he can add a scoring touch as well. That makes him like a very intriguing prospect and player in general. Again, my big beef with putting him at 6 is just the ceiling part, where like you guys have behind him, you have guys like the big one, obviously, is Liam Öhgren.
But
I totally get it though too.
Second sentence under analysis tells you everything about Pronman's thought process. He's a good sized center who can skate. That's all he fucking cares about. That's it.
Yeah, and I mean, again, the fact that he showed that he can definitely play center, like that's where the positional thing comes in here too. But yeah, I'm telling you, when I was scrolling, I audibly gasped. Again, I'm a big Caedan Bankier guy. Love Caedan Bankier. Everyone that's been following this podcast for a while knows how the first year I was like very critical, and then next year he absolutely popped off. And then this past season comes in and looks really, really good with Iowa on a bad team, but like put up legit points after missing a good chunk of the beginning of the season with injury. So he's just like continuing to develop and looks like a guy that should be a solid NHL player. And yeah, like a 3C on any winning team, for whatever reason, the guy that's a 3C and it's just like super reliable, everyone just remembers like that guy was huge. Like he was an extremely important player. The fact that he's got that scoring touch though, and he fills that two-way middle of the lineup in the center is like, that's why he's there at 6. But again, I think the big beef that everyone's going to have is just the question about the ceiling. So we'll see. Hopefully it just continues to develop, and we'll see what happens this year if he gets maybe a game or two. But we'll see.
Yeah. It is funny though. We got to like pump the brakes a little bit with all the fans that assume that Liam Öhgren is a lock for this roster, right?
He's not. I don't think they can put him on the fucking roster.
They can't afford him.
They can't afford fucking anybody. I went through Puckpedia. They don't have enough cap space to put any of their fucking guys that are not listed as like it's insane. They have like 760,000 in space. But anyways, number 7, Liam Öhgren. The tools: skating NHL average, puck skills NHL average, hockey sense NHL average, compete high end, shot above NHL average. Thoughts on the tools?
I mean, a lot of it reasonable, fair. I guess you would probably know better than me on the skating and puck skills for him specifically from a longer track record of watching, but like compete high end makes total sense. Shot above NHL average. Again, the fact that it like aligns the same as Caedan Bankier is surprising to me, but like, again, it's a loose tier. So like, I don't know. Nothing's crazy to me here.
think my internet's bad? Yeah. I actually do think the NHL average part of it's fair. The hockey sense one's kind of interesting to me. I'm somewhere closer probably to high end than NHL average. But I also can understand like kind of being a little bit more firm on that. The one thing, like the last sentence in what Pronman writes about him is he won't blow you away with his speed or skill, but he has enough of a well-rounded game to project as a middle six wing. I think the scoring ability tips the scales there where he looks like a guy that could be a potential, like the well-rounded game and the fact that like his goal scoring ability is legit, like sniper above NHL average. I think to me that shows that he should be able to at least project as like a top six winger, like a type of that does play that like really well-rounded two-way game. Again, we've said this before, like the idea of like a Liam Öhgren, Joel Eriksson Ek, and Matt Boldy line is so intriguing to me. It's insane. I love that the idea of that in the future, because that's just a line that is all three zones. But I would have put him again just based on the ceiling. Like I don't see him. Like I don't rank him below Bankier, but again, like you look at like the likelihood or whatever that they hit, I get it. But again, just the fact that he's got that two-way ability that he really did in his draft year, kind of only had to showcase the offense, but he did show the last like year or two playing pro in Sweden, and then when he came over this year, did not look out of place in the few games that he played in the AHL and the NHL. I would project him more like the top six versus like a middle six. But it was just interesting to me. It was the 6 versus 7 Bankier versus Öhgren thing is interesting, obviously.
Well, let's jump then to the 9 versus 11. Like that's the meat on the bone that everyone cares about here.
Yeah. All right. So at 9, we've got Charlie Stramel. The tier that he puts him in is projected to play NHL games, which I think that's accurate. Skating NHL average, puck skills NHL average, hockey sense below NHL average, compete above NHL average.
We really hope that the hockey sense one gets
first sentence in the analysis. There's no way to describe this season for Stramel as anything better than a disaster. That is accurate. It's extremely accurate. And then 11, Marat Khusnutdinov. Tier projected to play NHL games is playing NHL games. Skating above NHL average, puck skills NHL average, hockey sense NHL average, compete high end, shot below NHL average. The one thing I probably would have changed the hockey sense. I do think
hockey sense for sure. Yeah.
Compete,
obviously. I mean, if you're going to eat a puck at the end of the second period when you're up 3 goals, like
it's just God. Khusnutdinov 2024. My president. It's interesting. I don't know. I would probably have them closer to. I think our ranking that we all did. I think everyone had. Or did we count? Yeah, we put
Khusnutdinov was high. Right? He was high.
Yeah, very high.
I think
a lot of it comes down to the. Yeah, he couldn't help himself. Obviously, the way it's gone for Stramel the last 2 years, no matter what you say about him, it's always going to be met not with kind words. And the one thing that we said was this is the one player that it's like, if you're going to call it like making excuses or whatever, you look at the last 2 years, you're like, yeah, I mean, fair enough. You know what? I can't. Usually it's like, all right, 1 year we can say, all right, this is the 1 year that he can have a bad year, whatever. It's like, what do you got for me now? Or like, what can you show me? Then he goes, the fact Wisconsin hires the one coach where it's like, oh no.
Right.
He gets hurt, never earns the trust back, really just used on the fourth line, like not even playing center, really.
Couldn't get older.
For his things. Like couldn't like make his age go, like, couldn't speed up time.
What I'd say on that though is both sides can reasonably be true, right? Like we are very justified in our defense of what has gone against him in the last few years. And like, I couldn't have said it more outright in the rankings episode. This year, excuses no longer exist. He either does the thing this year or I'm done defending him, right? But I understand, like, for a casual fan who's coming that like wants your insight on our prospect pool, Z, I don't blame them for thinking he's a bum. Like, outside looking in, he looks like a bum.
Yeah. Yeah. And like, so it's interesting too, because I do think like, even if they both hit their like pretty close to their absolute ceilings, they're probably still, and this is where like this ranking, I'm like, okay, I can like get myself there. They're both playing a pretty similar role if they both hit relatively close to their ceilings. Like, I love Khusnutdinov. He's been like one of, if not my favorite prospect in this pool for like since they drafted him. Yeah. He's played a ton of pro hockey in the KHL. He had 1 year where he went off offensively. His game in the NHL is not going to rely on big offensive numbers. Like, I don't see a world where he becomes like a top 6 center or wing, whatever. It's interesting because he does have some legit skills. His skating is insane, and he's an incredibly smart player. And again, like, we've seen some offensive touch for him, but he's not going to score goals. He's not really necessarily going to be driving a line in terms of like creating all the offense in the world. His value just comes down to how smart he is, and really the two-way game. I mean, everyone shit themselves when he won a face-off, and like even he was shocked by like, I don't know why. That's sorry, 2 face-offs in a row. Sorry,
the reaction rocked.
Yeah, it was so, and hit like ooh. When he said ooh, I it was way funnier actually reading the tweet where it was like Khusnutdinov on the fans' reaction to him winning face-off. Quote, ooh. I was like, I was dying laughing. He was like, what the fuck was that? Ooh. It was so good. But again, so I do think like if they both hit relatively close to their ceilings, like they're playing a similar role. Like they're probably both, again, if they hit on your third line, Stramel projects absolutely to be a center. He's flashed the scoring touch in the past. He can really move for a guy his size, and he has the physical element that's like not just big and physical. He's fucking mean. And throughout his career here, the offense has not been there in college hockey. On the back end, he's been more than fine. Like, he's been a very capable defensive forward still. But again, to justify where they took him above some of the other guys where they took him, you need to see a lot more offense this year. Even if he doesn't pop off, he needs to be one of Michigan State's go-to guys this season. And he needs to like take 1, 2, 3 steps forward based on what he's done at Wisconsin. But I can understand when you evaluate from like Pronman's point of view and how he evaluates the prospect, putting him above Khusnutdinov, just the fact that they both probably play a fairly similar role in the NHL. And Stramel adds that layer of like toughness, physicality, and being mean, and the fact that he's 6'2" or 6'3" or whatever. Yeah. So I do understand that. I think we've already seen enough of Khusnutdinov to know that he's a surefire NHL player. Despite his size, it does not get in the way of him. Like, he is not afraid to go to the middle of the ice. He's not afraid to go in front of the net. And he does flash a like undercover skill, like the hand skills. But he's such a smart player that there should be a little bit of offense in there at least. And again, Stramel just in the past has shown that he does have like that offensive touch that he hasn't been able to show with Wisconsin. So again, I probably still have Khusnutdinov above Stramel, or I definitely do, obviously, based on our rankings. But it'll be interesting to see if Stramel actually does produce at Michigan State. He is one of their go-to guys. It's going to be interesting then to see what the conversation around him is after this season, after this college season, if he does play well. Because he could find himself in a lot of more like good graces amongst the fan base if he does go off of Michigan State this year.
No, that's for sure. And I do think that if either of them pan out as a mismatch 3C, you're thrilled. Like, you're not really going to look at like what the draft grade was for either of them. It's just like, hey, did either of them become this? If one does, you're pretty thrilled. And the other one hopefully can slot in as your 4C. I don't know. But not a bad spot to be in. The next couple of guys pretty much fit in exactly where we have them slotted in our rankings. So I think the one that we should wrap up with is just the write-up here from Pronman, that I think it's reasonable.
Which I needed to mention which one. But what, just because I did want to mention, at least, so I mentioned the tools thing, which is like really interesting to me because again, so like Bankier at 6, every tool other than the what was it? Shot was NHL average. The shot he had above NHL average for Bankier. Kiviharju, who he has at 13, the last guy that he actually ranked. Tier, projected to play NHL games, skating above NHL average, puck skills NHL average, hockey sense above NHL average, compete above NHL average, and yet finds himself 13th on the list. I actually still get it though. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Height, below, significantly below, disgustingly below NHL average. At the same time, I still get it because there's just a ton of like question marks in Kiviharju's game. But I just thought it was funny, like the tools are all other than puck skills above NHL average, but he's the only guy with that many above NHL average tools who like is this low. But gotta mention though, the preseason, he's looked so good. His preseason games. Oh, really good.
Love that.
But obviously the big omission from getting ranked here, Riley Height. And I gotta find the miniature write-up that he did on that one. Riley Height's super skilled and intelligent. He dominated WHL and can run a power play like a pro. He is a small forward with so-so foot speed, though, so how his game will translate to the NHL remains a major question. Interesting to me. I think the way that he evaluates skating, you could say that a lot of guys have so-so skating.
He didn't say so-so skating. He said so-so foot speed.
Right, which same thing. Like I play the same. I'm like, I don't know. I've never watched him play and been like, man, if he had another level of speed, another layer of speed, he'd even be. I don't really see the skating thing getting in the way. The one thing that I could understand why there's going to be questions, it's like where exactly, what kind of NHL player is he going to like? Exactly. Like, where does he find himself in the lineup? I can kind of get there. I think the fact that he didn't make 1 through 13 is crazy. All you have to do is watch his draft year and draft plus 1 year, the WHL, playing with other guys who went first, second, third, fourth, fifth overall, and he's right there in terms of points. So, and the fact that he's got a really solid two-way game, I think should have at least garnered a spot in the 1 through 13. But that was obviously the number one
on this list.
Yeah. He's so good. He's so fun.
Yeah.
That was obviously the number one big time omission from this list, especially when a guy like, Ryder Ritchie had at 10. And I love Ryder Ritchie. Everyone knows how excited I was at that pick. The fact that he's got a spot there versus Riley Height, I think is fascinating to me. But the one other guy I really did want to mention too is one of the more intriguing prospects that I think is going to be a really good NHL player. I just don't see it happening in Minnesota is Jack Peart. So I'll be fascinated to watch Io this year and see how he plays. But I've said this a million times. I feel like he's kind of got lost in the shuffle a little bit here because he's got some legit upside. He's such a prototypical two-way NHL defenseman now. What guys his size and his skill set, a lot of NHL teams would love to have a Jack Peart. I just don't know. When you look at some of the guys they have in the pool, I don't know if that's going to be in Minnesota. I don't.
Yeah. No, that's fair. Okay. Well, I got 3 minutes here for you to do your quick abbreviated rundown of what the preseasons look like, or, if you want to do U20, whatever, or you can keep going without me.
Real quick on the U20, Czechia. So the U25 Nations tournament happened last week. Czechia went 4-0. It's not like an actual tournament. It's just they played 4 games. Czechia went 4-0. Edward Charlet led the tournament in points. He went off. He looked phenomenal. Sweden went 2-1-1. Anton Frondell, top 2025 eligible. He only played in 2 games. He looked real good, though, in those 2 games, put up a couple points. The other big-time prospect for 2025 from Sweden that played a lot was Carl Anborn. Big right shot, super mobile D-man. He looked phenomenal. I think he put up 4 or 5 points in 4 games for Sweden. But they looked really good. Finland went 2-2. Slovakia went 2-2. And poor Switzerland got the ever-living shit kicked out of them 4 games in a row. Like, it was sad. But at least want to mention that. And then the European preseason, Kiviharju played 6 games so far, put up 3 points. He's looked really good for them. Kumpulainen's looked so good in the preseason as well. I think he's played 3 or 4 games. I looked at the underlying stats with him on the ice at 5v5. Shots are 70% in Pelicans' advantage, and expected goals are like 68. And by the way, for everyone that loves faceoffs, he went 10 for 13 so far. Yeah. So put him on the team. First line center. He's looked really good. And Soini, again, super intriguing. Soini is still super intriguing to me in this prospect pool. He's a big, super mobile, right shot D-man, flashes a little bit of offense, but not really good at put up a ton at the NHL level. But I thought he's looked all right. For Ilves, he's played around 14, 15 minutes a game. But yeah, KHL season starts tomorrow, Tuesday, the 3rd. Finnish Liga, their official season starts on the 10th. USHL starts the 18th. WHL in that league, the QM shit, I've never heard of it. That also starts on the 20th. SHL, 21st. There's one more. OHL's on, where did it go? It's on my calendar. There it is, on the 25th of September. So we are in hockey season. Obviously, the NHL season starts soon too. But yeah, that's all I got.
We love it. So close. And obviously, as all of those seasons kick off, that's kind of where we'll prioritize our prospect coverage in the coming weeks. Every week now, Monday, 5:30 Central, 6:30 Eastern, if we got any of the Boston faithful jumping on. But tune in every week. And as we mentioned, this is the last week that we'll be dropping the rankings with the Sound the Foghorn guys. Might already be out on YouTube if you want to check it out there. Otherwise, podcast on Thursday. That's really all we got. I think we're good.
That'll do it.